Sumwas. Kini ang sigianan sa RPN, Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DX 693 kHz. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda sa syudad sa mga kampiyon. Live to the world, pinaagi sa FB page, karon mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play o Apple Store, YouTube o Twitter. Alang sa mas ipakusgan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. DX size 93, ang mas ipakusgan na inyong Radyo Ronda.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DX General Santos. DX General Santos. Una sa balita. Balita. Musika o kalingawan. Mas tulong pinalakas. Radio.
This is CNN Philippines.
On CNN Philippines.
We're back.
Hell yeah!
I take it very, very seriously.
This week on Hollywood Express. F9 is already a record breaker.
It's very humbling to watch them and be able to take advice from them.
A magical reunion is in the works.
Mabuhay! I'm Tracy Maureen Perez, your Miss World Philippines 2021. Join me on my road to Miss World 2021, happening in Puerto Rico. Catch the coronation night here on CNN Philippines.
On the heels of the top-rating 1-on-4 special presentation, The Generals, that featured the Armed Forces Chief of Staff standing shoulder to shoulder with the three major service commanders, CNN Philippines not only brings the program back, but also ups the ante. The network brings you 4 star-ranked men who command the forces that keep the peace and enforce the law. The newly installed AFP Chief of Staff, General Andres Centino, and Philippine National Police Chief, General Leonardo Carlos, together with Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Leopoldo Laroya, and Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Director General Undersecretary Wilkins Villanueva. These 4 men sit down to an incisive discussion in yet another first on Philippine television, The Generals 2.0. Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, Senator Bongo's presidential bid no longer a go. The administration backs out from the race to Malacanang, saying his decision had to do with his family and President Duterte. 2.5 million and counting as the national COVID-19 vaccination program continues for the second day. The government says it is confident it will achieve its target of vaccinating a total of 9 million people by tomorrow. And with the threat of the new Omicron coronavirus variant, the government is studying the possible return of the controversial face shields in areas under lower alert levels. Well, the man whose main promise was to carry on with the legacy of the Duterte administration is backing out of the 2022 presidential race. Senator Bongo made the announcement this morning, almost a week after hinting at possible changes in his electoral bid. Our Trish Derada tells us what made Go arrive at his decision.
In another quick turn of events, Senator Bongo announces he's dropping out of the presidential race. Although nothing is formal yet, he explains his decision had to do with his family.
Ayaw rin talaga ng aking pamilya. Kaya naisip ko na siguro ay hindi ko pa po panahon sa ngayon. Diyos lang po ang nakakaalam kung kailan talaga ang tamang panahon ko. Ayaw ko rin pong lalong maipit si Pangulong Duterte. Higit pa po sa tatay ang pagmamahal ko sa kanya. Matanda na po siya at marami na siyang naibigay sa bayan kung kaya't ayaw ko nang dagdagan pa ang kanyang problema. Nananatili akong tapat sa kanya at nangako akong sasamahan ko po siya habang buhay.
Go initially ran for vice president, but before the deadline for substitution, he replaced the presidential bet of the PDDS party after Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte substituted as Lakas CMD's vice presidential contender. Sara also teamed up with presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos. Go says no one pressured him to back out of the race.
In the past few days, I realized that my heart and my mind are contradicting my own actions. Talagang nagre-resist po ang aking katawan, puso at isipan. I am willing to make the supreme sacrifice for the good of our country and for the sake of unity among our supporters and leaders.
Go made the announcement after he and President Duterte attended the commemoration of the 158th birthday anniversary of Filipino hero Andres Bonifacio Tuesday morning.
But destiny has a way of turning things around. Just like the great Andres Bonifacio, the president who never was. Bonifacio had every great opportunity to lead our country as our president after leading a revolutionary movement that started our quest for liberty. But destiny had something different for him. Sa ngayon, handa po ako magsakripisyo alang-alang sa kapakanan ng ating bayan at ni Pangulong Duterte.
Go says it's too early to say who will be the administration's new bet. He says he'll go for someone who will continue the legacy of President Duterte. For now, the former presidential aide of Mr. Duterte says he will continue serving the people in his capacity as a senator. Trisha Terada, CNN Philippines.
The Commission on Elections says Go can back out from the 2022 race anytime until May 9, Election Day. But unlike before, he can no longer nominate a replacement. COMELEC explains the deadline for voluntary substitutions expired on November 15. The earliest time Go can file for withdrawal before the agency's law department is on Wednesday, December 1st, since today is a holiday. Now, following Bongo's withdrawal of his electoral bid, the party that fielded the center as presidential bet says it is open to all options. Members of Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan will meet today and will also talk to its affiliate, the ruling PDP Laban Party. PDDS founder Greco Bellica says they respect Go's decision, but they now need direction. He adds there's no plan yet who among the presidential candidates to support.
Well, right now, it's until we sit down with our leaders and our principal, the President and Senator Bongo, wala muna kami iniisip na gano'n. All options are open, and whatever's going to be best for the country and best for the party.
The president of a PDP Laban faction, Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, also expressed full support for Go. He said he's sure the center has a good reason behind his decision. Presidential aspirant Leody de Guzman believes Go pulling out of the race will only boost the Marcos-Duterte tandem, while another hopeful, Senator Ping Lacson, only wishes his fellow senator good luck. Lacson says the important question now is who will be the administration candidate. He says Congressman Pantaleon Bebot Alvarez, president of his party, the Partido Reforma, has been in constant communication with Cusi, but only on a personal level. Lacson adds he's not aware of the extent of their talks, but when asked if he is open to be the administration candidate, he had this to say.
Mahirap sagutin yung tanong mo. Sabi ko kami dalawa ni SP, determinado kami, no? Sabi nga namin, maski sino pang kaharap namin, tuloy-tuloy lang kami. No? An endorsement is an endorsement. No? No matter kung ano yung kinakere ng endorsement, it's still an endorsement. Doon na lang muna tayo, but mahirap sagutin yung open o willing o will seek. But definitely, we will not seek endorsement kasi masyadong presumptuous on our part.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, meanwhile, says he is willing to be endorsed by President Duterte, hoping that more national and local officials will support his presidential bid. While he will not preempt any endorsement from Malacanang or any other officials, Moreno says he's always hopeful. As for presidential aspirant Senator Manny Pacquiao, he thinks nothing is final yet about Go's withdrawal, but he says he respects the decisions of other hopefuls. Pacquiao adds he and his team are focused on how to uplift the lives of poor Filipinos. The aspirant visited San Francisco town in Agusan del Sur, where another crowd of supporters welcomed him. In photographs, some were seen without face masks, others were not wearing them properly, and they also failed to observe physical distancing. While it is still unclear who the administration's new presidential bet will be, aspirant Bongbong Marcos vows to continue President Duterte's trademark infrastructure program. Now, that's despite Mr. Duterte recently criticizing the former senator, calling him a weak leader and a spoiled child. Marcos made the promise in a speech before a sea of supporters in eastern Samar's Borongan City. He was with his running mate, presidential daughter Sara Duterte. Marcos said continuing the Build, Build, Build program will be part of his COVID-19 post-pandemic jobs creation plan for residents of Eastern Visayas. More changes unfolding in the months leading to the 2022 presidential race. One aspirant facing at least 4 petitions opposing his presidential run and another withdrawing days after admitting possible changes to his bid. What happens next? We get the views of political analyst Antonio Contreras and sociologist Ash Presto. Catch Politics as usual tonight at 8:30, only here on CNN Philippines. Well, platforms or popularity, Filipinos are weighing in on which candidates they will likely vote for with less than 6 months to go before the 2022 polls. Stanley Gahete has that story.
46-year-old eatery owner Jinky Kawe believes popularity should be one of the attributes of a candidate.
Yung kilala na siya, yung alam na ng buong tao kung ano yung nagawa niya sa bansa.
Barangay Coordinator Epifania Escultor wants a candidate who experienced poverty.
Naniniwala po ako, pag ang tao po ay nanggaling po sa hirap at ang puso niya ay nasa masa, tsak, aasinso ang Pilipinas at maganda ang pamamalakad.
A few more months before the 2022 national local elections, voters have begun forming their criteria for choosing their candidate. Some prefer a man for the masses, while others believe the contender should be popular, a celebrity with name recall, even if they are unsure if the candidate will do well in public service. These sentiments are reflected in the results of a recent survey by the social weather stations for Strat-based ADR Institute on the preferences of Filipino voters. Among the preferred candidates are old names in politics such as Chis Escudero, Alan Peter Cayetano, Loren Legarda, Mig Zubiri, and Jojo Binay. Only 2 out of 12 are not familiar names in politics. These are broadcast journalist Rafi Tulfo and actor Robin Padilla.
The rules of the game always focuses on who's popular. It's always about name recall. That's the unfortunate reality of Philippine politics.
While popularity is important, political scientist Karl Mark Ramota says voters should not invest on it, but rather on the candidate's plans for the country.
The stories revolve primarily around who is going to file their candidacy, who will win, who is more popular, who is winnable. Instead of asking the questions, what principles do they represent? What issues do they intend to focus on? What type of campaign or message are they going to deliver?
It's a different thing for Taho vendor Helasio Lopez, who has been a registered voter for more than 20 years.
Pag artista, hindi ko ibuboto yun. Ngayon, marami ako ibuboto yung mga bago na alam kong makakatulong sa bansa.
But Lopez is aware of the downside of voting unpopular candidates.
Pag binuboto ko yung mga hindi sikat, talo.
Ramota says voters should not be blamed, but the existing political culture. While educating voters is important, a broader political reform is necessary.
They must be able to translate their message in a language that can be easily understood by the common tao.
Stanley Guedes, CNN Philippines.
Presidential aspirant and labor leader Leody de Guzman marked Bonifacio Day by leading a protest in the city of Manila, which was supposedly blocked by police. Demonstrators said police got in their way as they were marching to Liwasan Bonifacio and then to Mendiola this morning. They slammed authorities for supposedly disrupting their activities. Other labor groups also barred from holding a program along España Boulevard. Police say the groups had no permits and were not allowed to hold demonstrations along the busy road. The cops add the protesters parked their truck in a no parking zone. The Manila city government, for its part, denies it was ordered to block the protests. It says there was only a miscommunication between police and demonstrators and that it had no intention of holding back any group from holding their programs. Up ahead on Newsnight, a look at day 2 of the national COVID-19 vaccination drive. And is the face shield policy about to return because of the Omicron variant? We'll find out after the break. You're watching CNN Philippines.
Pogino! Dahil yan sa vet-approved Nutri-Chunks Coach Shine. With active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real salmon goodness and omega-3 and 6 for healthy skin and shiny coat. Kita naman, di ba? Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks Coach Shine.
The time has come.
Philippines, start your engines. Drag Race is now on Discovery Plus. D is for dazzling, for daring, and it's a double D this November. Starting with all of RuPaul's Drag Race UK, including the latest season and the latest of Drag Race Thailand.
It's exciting, refreshing. Y'all ready to make Drag Race history?
Get dragged into D Phenomenon on Discovery Plus. Subscribe now at 129 pesos per month.
Hindi biro ang mga pagsubok na hinarap at patuloy na kinakaharap ng ating Pangulo. Pero dahil sa tapang at malasakit sa mga Pilipino ni Pangulong Duterte, unti-unti nating nakamit ang mga pagbabago. Mula noong 2016, marami na ang nagbago sa ating bayan. Mga pagbabagong nakikita, nararamdaman at napapakinabangan ng Pilipino. Ito ang pamana ng pagbabago.
In Bulacan, residents enjoy easier access to the kind of water we all deserve. This is thanks to SMC Infrastructure's Bulacan Bulk Water Supply System project, a treatment facility that provides affordable and potable bulk water to the 24 municipalities of Bulacan. It produces an average volume of 160 million liters per day for around 165,000 households. It also has a maximum capacity of 388 million liters per day. This meets the increasing water demand of Bulaqueños. The project also cuts down the use of deep wells, helping mitigate the environmental impact of excessive groundwater extraction. The Bulacan Bulk Water Supply System project provides Bulaqueños the affordable and reliable potable water supply they need.
Ano ba talaga ang tunay na astig? That's Red Horse for you. Iba ang sipa.
In Red Horse, we use a blend of malted barley and cereals. The key to brewing an extra strong beer is to convert the carbohydrates into fermentable sugars. And in Red Horse, we use a carefully selected yeast strain, one that is very robust.
This full-flavored lager is multi-awarded. Over the years, Red Horse has garnered awards from Mont Selection and the Australian International Beer Awards. Red Horse clearly is on fire. From video conferencing to virtual happy hours with family and friends, you'll get a kick out of the freshness and boldness of Red Horse.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. It is day 2 of the massive national vaccination drive. Data is starting to trickle in from the provinces. The government says 2.5 million people were inoculated on the first day. And as Caroline Bonkin reports, it is confident of reaching 9 million by tomorrow.
Young and old, residents of Bulacan Province aged 12 and up lined up at vaccination sites on the second day of the government's massive vaccination drive. Many are here to finally get their first dose.
Nakita ko na po kasi yung nagiging effect po na positive po sa mga region po ng Pilipinas. Tsaka po para na rin po sa face-to-face classes, para po ready na rin po.
Everyone gets a grocery package. But what convinced Benjamin Aruta most is his need for a vaccination card.
Ang sabi po kasi nila, priority na raw ngayon yung vaccination card. Baka kasi pumunta ako ng mga kapatid ko sa Cavite, Maynila, baka hindi mapasakay daw ng bus. Talagang ayaw ko kasi na marami rin ng agam-agam.
But other residents like Hil Yabaw are still at home, still unsure if they want to get vaccinated.
Hindi yan bawal yung nagagamot kasi gagamot ako sa sa baga. Hindi pa ako nagpaano sa doktor.
So far, the province has fully vaccinated 45% of its target population. The governor hopes to bring its vaccine coverage to 70% by Wednesday. They even accept walk-ins.
Pag hindi dumating yung mga naka-registered, yun ang ibibigay namin sa walk-in kasi kinakailangan na ibigay na yun.
Although short on target, Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez is satisfied with the first day's turnout. Over 2.5 million vaccinees, the biggest single-day record. Of these, over 2 million came for a first dose.
Objective is being achieved considering that we are trying to collect all those unvaccinated. Malaking accomplishment na yun.
Many regions had about 100,000 vaccinees. Around 300,000 were inoculated in Calabarzon and Central Luzon. But Cordillera and Bangsamoro regions are behind with only nearly 40,000 vaccinees each.
Vaccine preference ang isa. Second issue talagang yung hesitancy ng mga seniors natin. And also third is yung accessibility. Talaga nakita natin na yung mga areas ng BARM is nasa island provinces. And this is also a continuing challenge.
Health officials hope the vaccine education drives in communities are enough to convince the remaining unvaccinated population to take the shot. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
In some areas in Metro Manila, you can go to restaurants to get your COVID shot, like in this fast food chain in Pasay City, where one floor has been transformed into a makeshift vaccination site for the 3-day immunization drive. City officials say walk-ins and non-residents are also accepted. You only have to present your ID card and barangay clearance if you live in Pasay.
Okay naman, so far so good naman. Wala namang problem na nakikitaan. Kasi marami talaga kaming sites din Taga Paranaque ako, so dapat sa Ayala Mall po. Tapos nakita ko may mga pila dito, pumunta lang ako dito.
Officials advising vaccinees to come in early to avoid long lines and waiting time. Hundreds of minors aged 14 and above flocked to a vaccination center in Alabat, Quezon on the second day of the national vaccination drive. Our George Quiles has that story and other vaccine updates in the town.
This long line leads to the vaccination center in Alabat, Quezon Province. It's the first pediatric vaccination against COVID-19 in the island. The government allotted 588 doses of Moderna vaccines to minors aged 14 to 17 here on the second day of the national vaccination drive. Some of the vaccinees are nervous, like 16-year-old Arabella Villanueva.
Kinakabahan po.
Bakit?
Hindi ko po alam.
Pero ikaw, okay lang sa'yo magpabakuna ka?
Opo.
Bakit?
Para po mas maging pong protektado po.
Her mother, Robeline, was the one who encouraged her to get vaccinated, hoping to have extra protection should the school reopens for face-to-face classes.
Kampante po ako. Pero mas gustuhin ko pa rin po na yung patuloy pa po yung face shield tsaka face mask.
Parents and guardians were also given the chance to get inoculated as well. AstraZeneca and Sinovac vaccines were given to adults. But the available vials of AstraZeneca vaccine in Alabat are set to expire today.
Today, ang nakalagay doon sa expiration, na sabi, nagtanong na rin sa province yung aming public health nurse at para ma-clarify kung pwede pang gamitin, pwede pa raw.
Hindi na tayo nagda-deploy na